Hi, I'm Georgia.
And I'm Simone.
And welcome to episode 53 of the Hope Book Club podcast, where we gush about books and talk about literature from a hope-filled Christian lens.
In this episode, we're celebrating a wonderful but often underappreciated genre of book, and that's cookbooks. So joining us for this episode, we have Isobel, who she works in our community relations team here at Hope. And Isobel, you actually read cookbooks from like front to back, like you would a normal book.
I do. I go to the library, I go to the cookbook section, and I will read it from front to back.
That's amazing. that's not many people do that, right? That's incredible. How did your love for cookbooks come about?
Well, my dad used to have basically one that he designed himself with cutouts from newspapers and magazines. So I used to love just getting that out and reading through it. But then, going back to the library and seeing the so many cookbooks and just marveling that people could come up with that many ways to make food. But they're also just visually gorgeous, like the photos, and then seeing the difference between like really descriptive recipes and then food writers who are really casual. They're just like, this is the main idea, throw it together. Just seeing the different styles of writing is really interesting.
This episode, we're actually going to be doing something a little different. Normally, we would all review the same book, but instead of reviewing the kind of one cookbook and sharing our thoughts on it, each of us have brought a cookbook, our favorite cookbook. We're going to share why we love it. So, Simone, let's start with you. I know you've traveled a lot.
Yeah.
You've come from Perth.
Yep.
Do you own many physical cookbooks?
I used to.
Right.
So again, a lot of them are actually back in Perth. I also traveled light. I had to leave a lot there. But honestly, the biggest issue I've had with moving a lot, and I've had a lot of different housemates over the years, right? So often I'll go to go make a recipe, or I'll think about a cookbook I want to look at and be like, no, that was my housemate's cookbook, not mine. And so I literally called my friend the other day and I was like, I really want to make milk tart. Can you send me your recipe? Because it was in her cookbook.
I love that. Now, I have noticed that you haven't got a physical book in your lap like me and Isobel, but you have brought a version of it to share on the iPad.
Okay, so here's the thing. My favorite cookbook it's a very big, heavy one, so it is back in Perth, and it also is a Christmas one, so I couldn't really get access to it at the moment. So my favorite is Nigella Lawson.
Nigella.
Oh, I love Nigella.
The Christmas, her specific Nigella's Christmas cookbook. Definitely, I mean, as it says, food, family, friends, and festivities.
So how did you come across this cookbook?
So probably about 10 years ago, I was actually given it. So it was around the time that I sort of had decided to I found Christmas really stressful. I decided to reclaim that and just start my own traditions and really just kind of getting into the Christmas spirit again and doing having friends over. I love cooking, having friends over, doing the Christmas parties. And I was given this cookbook to kind of facilitate that. And so that's how I got it.
Oh, I love that. All right. What's kind of your favorite recipes that are in there that you really love to make?
It's tough. So I wouldn't say necessarily favorite recipe, but what I love, or my favorite part of the recipes is she does this thing where she'll do a really basic recipe, and on its own, it's amazing. You could make that, it's incredible, base done. But then she adds all these little variations you can try and different ways you can do that recipe. So for someone with I have a lot of friends with dietary requirements, I also it meant that you could take that one recipe and do it various different ways. So it wasn't you were doing the same recipe over and over again. You could have fun with it. And that's kind of what I love.
I love that. Isobel, are you a fan of Christmas?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you have any favorite Christmas recipes that you go to? Any family recipes?
One that's memorable is every Christmas my nana will make prawn cocktail.
Oh, so classic.
That is so classic Aussie Christmas as well.
Yep. There is a recipe. I'm pretty sure there was a recipe for that in there as well. That's.
So you've got so there's Aussie Christmas recipes and also.
Yeah, so that's surprising with the Nigella one, right?
Yeah.
It's it is. she's very English, and I love the way that she does. She leans into the Englishness of it all. But she also in this book had a whole pile of Australian recipes too. So it was this beautiful blend, which was my childhood.
She knows her audience.
Oh, she does.
Are you a fan of watching her cooking shows?
Love her cooking shows. Her joy for cooking and her joy for she doesn't shy away from just going, you know what, a little bit of butter is fine. Like, don't try and like make this crazy healthy. Just enjoy it, have it in moderation. And her joy for food is kind of like, it's palpable.
Yeah, infectious
you can
for
feel
sure.
it. It's infectious.
Oh, I love that. Oh, thanks for sharing, Sim. It makes me want to just go binge watch Nigellas right now. All right, Isobel, let's go to you now. What's the cookbook you've brought to share?
So I brought The Weekend Cook by Matthew Evans.
That looks very nice and I don't know, it's got quite a calming effect.
It's very aesthetic.
So what makes this book so special?
Well, I picked it up at Berkeley Books in the Southern Highlands. I don't know if you guys have been.
Yes.
But the book barn there is pretty amazing. And they have a combination of new and secondhand books. So this is a secondhand one I picked up. And I recognise Matthew Evans' name. He did a series on the SBS Gourmet Farmer.
I think I've heard of this.
Yeah. So he did work in Sydney as a restaurant reviewer, writing for the newspapers, but then relocated to Tassie and started his own farm and a restaurant attached to that. But this book is from his restaurant reviewer days. It has a combination of really fancy stuff if you're having a special weekend dinner, or really easy stuff if you get nothing in the morning and just need something quick for the kids, you know?
Okay. What's your kind of favourite recipes that you like to cook in there, or favourite cuisine? Is there like a type that he kind of...
I just love how simple some of his stuff is. Like, it'll have like 5 ingredients, but like 1 or 2 really special ingredients that'll elevate the rest and make something really special, but it's really simple. And like I said, it's like the weekend cook. Like, weekend, chilled, relaxed, but you're still doing special stuff. So you still want something that'll be nice.
Yeah. Are you the kind of person, because I get to the weekend and I am exhausted. Like, theoretically, I'm like, this will be the time where I like cook all the fancy stuff, and it's like, oh, I'm having like leftovers from the week. Are you a weekend cook? Like, you'll kind of find the time on the weekend to really just like, you quite enjoy that process?
Definitely. It's the time where you have to go and get out that recipe that, you know, I have time if it goes wrong, or I have time to duck to the shops if I've forgotten an ingredient. You know, it's the time to trial some new things.
Are you someone who so when you do that, like, you know, creates the whole environment? Like, it's an experience. It's not just like cooking a meal. It's like get the music on, like have the recipe, set it all up, spend the time kind of doing it.
So my sister had this joke. She's like, we don't need to buy a slow cooker. We've got one. She's named Isobel. I enjoy the process. For me, it's all about taking my time. I don't enjoy it if I've rushed through it.
Yes.
So that's why I love doing it on the weekends.
Do you allow cooks in the kitchen with you? Helpers? Or is it very much stay out? This is slow cooker Isobel's situation.
Yeah, I like doing it on my own.
Are you the eldest child?
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that. Me too. And I'm like, no cooks in the kitchen, please.
I'm all for I'm happy to have a friend or someone sitting there chatting to me while I cook.
I like that.
Yes.
Yeah, but if I have to then tell them
touch.
to do things, it ruins the flow.
It takes away the fun. It's like, it's not fun if I'm ordering people around.
Yeah. Well, Georgia, we've come to you. What is your cookbook?
I'm so pleased to be able to share the love of my life, this cookbook. It's called In Praise of Veg by Alice Zaslavsky. I always get her name wrong, Zaslavsky. Alice was on MasterChef. I think she came in about 4th or 5th. I can't actually remember, but she was on a few seasons ago. She had these really beautiful bright glasses. I don't know if you remember her, but she has since written 2 cookbooks. This is her first one, and she does like a radio show on ABC National on Saturday mornings with Matt Preston, and they talk about all things food. She sometimes features on ABC TV Breakfast and does recipes for them. So she is a great human being. I first came across her because my family watches MasterChef. So I knew who she was. But when I was back producing Breakfast, we actually interviewed her just before this book came out for Harmony Day. Because she actually has a Georgian background. the country Georgia, not the state.
Not the
So we interviewed her, Sam and I interviewed her about her Georgian heritage and all the foods that she loves. And this was like just before this book was released. So, but the way she kind of just talks about veggies in this especially. So it's like a compendium, like basically every vegetable you can think of is in here. So you've got like at the start, she does like all the different ways that you can cook every single vegetable. So like if you're in a hurry, this is the quickest way to do it. If you want something kind of crunchy, this is the way to do it. If you have the time, you know, this is the most beautiful way.
Sounds like a very organized, scientific way of approaching it.
Yes.
I can see how this is your favorite.
Yes, truly. And then she's, I think this is really beautiful, the way that she has categorized the book into colors.
Color-coded. That's
she's actually
awesome.
color-coded the vegetables, and then like every recipe has like that as the hero.
She's done her own like basically like setting it all out and color coding for you.
Everything is color coded. Then you go to the back here, and you go all the way. There's a lot of green vegetables. You go all the way to the back, and you've got the seasonal index, so you know exactly what vegetables are in season, which I find really hard sometimes because supermarkets just sell everything all year round because they can you know, attempt to preserve the veggies, and you kind of they're bad by like 2 days.
It's also hard to find Australian seasonal calendars.
Yes,
so
because everything's different.
Because everything's like so like that's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite recipe from it?
I do have a favorite. I'm probably not going to be able to find it. It's something called summer slice, which is just basically a vegetable frittata. It's with tomatoes on top of it. I will say tomatoes is the only vegetable I don't like, so I just remove the tomatoes, even though it's supposed to be the hero ingredient. But it's such a great recipe when I have leftover eggs because it uses 5 eggs. So I'm like, let's just put in half a dozen. So that's my favorite. And not all the recipes, I will say, not all of them are vegetarian, but they all have vegetables as the hero, which is really great as well. So don't worry, if you're not vegetarian, if you still like meat, there are plenty of recipes in here for you as well.
And it'd be amazing as well, just like to elevate some of those, like, because vegetables are so often the side dish.
Yes.
Right? And it just elevates that.
Well, you don't even have to create a full recipe from here. You can just use the front, like the front instructions. If you want, you know, better tasting beans or better tasting broccoli, you can just use it from here. So that's why I love it. And everyone should go out and buy coffee. I just love how colourful it is. Anyway.
Even Nigella endorses it. I saw on the front cover.
Oh, hang on.
Look at that.
Zaslavsky is a force of nature from Nigella Lawson. Gosh.
I mean,
we're just in a fan club over here, guys.
We clearly have our favourites.
I also want to talk quickly before we finish up and move on to some comments about cookbooks versus recipes online, because I feel like especially in the last 5-10 years it's just become so much easier to look up stuff online, and I have found myself doing that a lot more. Even though I have cookbooks at home, it's just easier to just like, oh yeah, I'm kind of feeling like that. Also people with like dietary requirements, I have PCOS, so I'm on like a kind of like low carb, high protein kind of strange diet there, so it's like there aren't necessarily a lot of physical books dedicated to that. So it's like, oh, I'm just going to jump online and, you know, see what certain food blogs are saying, whatever. What do you guys do? Are you still kind of dedicated to the physical cookbook, or is cooking online kind of seeped in more to your cooking routine, Isobel?
I only go online if it's an emergency.
Wow.
That's so funny.
Emergency. Like that.
What constitutes an emergency?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I think I know how to make this, but oh no, I'm halfway through and like, what's the next step?
Right. You're relying on your own memory and it's like, oh, hang on.
Or if I've got ingredients and I can't think of a way to put them together.
So you will just pop into Google. Broccoli, whatever, and just see what comes up.
There are actually websites where you can literally go on, you can put in what ingredients you have and it spits out a whole pile of recipes using those ingredients.
I need to get onto that.
So for me it's only the emergency. I'm still cookbook girl.
Okay. I get so overwhelmed by the amount of recipes in Cookbook. So how do you do you bookmark? Do you take photos? Do you get your favorite ones, or do you just spend the time kind of flicking through? Because I get lost.
Well, like I said at the beginning, I enjoy reading it just as a experience.
That's true.
So I'm not someone who like has all these cookbooks they're not my reference guides. I
Sure.
genuinely enjoy them as a book, and I think you learn about food through reading them.
Yeah.
And they're often a base that I'll use to then design meals or do stuff.
I want to have a dinner party.
I know. I mean, I feel like we almost need to like plan a trip to England.
Yeah,
so, that, like,
so we can have
have
Isabel's food.
have a dinner party.
Yeah. So again, cookbooks for me, it's about reading them as a book and enjoying the experience. And I will take a photo of something that stands out, or, you know, if I like a certain vibe from a recipe, but it's not a reference guide for me. It's just enjoying it as a book and reading food writing. I enjoy that.
I have a mix. I mean, more online now since I didn't bring my cookbooks over, and I am slowly kind of building some of those up and getting them sent over. But I wouldn't say like online. I mean, it is online, but I'm a bit of a Pinterest girl when it comes to recipes.
Yeah.
So I have like full like Pinterest boards with subcategories with different like, so comfort foods, slow cooker foods, like recipes from different dietary stuff, like actually categorized into separate boards on that overall Pinterest board. So that's sort of my organization when it comes to it. But I also tend to be, again, I have a lot of dietary issues. So it's been a lot of learning what you can and can't do. And like I've spent probably the last 10 years doing a lot of cooking for a lot of different dietary things. And through that, you just kind of, you learn a lot. Like it's almost like, you know, cooking is a bit of a science.
Yeah.
And you learn the basics, you learn, you know, what goes with what doesn't go, how consistencies kind of can change. Like, so you get to a point where you almost graduate from like recipes to just making your own stuff up with those recipes as a base.
Yeah. And even if you don't make what's in the book, part of the fun is just seeing what's possible.
Right.
Like some baking cookbooks, I would never make what's in there. But I just
You don't want to make those profiterole tower, you know?
I just love reading the process and seeing that like people can actually make that with food.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is ridiculous the kind of baking that can be done now and can be done from home. Like I used to be a baker, and I definitely look at stuff that people do on
You've been left behind.
on social media. Like, yeah, you know what? I am barely competent now.
Sim, I believe you had some thoughts about like comfort food and sharing. So do you like to cook a lot for people, right?
So I actually don't cook much for well, I mean, obviously I cook for myself to eat, but not as an enjoyable thing, like a very basic stuff, comfort foods. I love cooking for other people. So that whole act of like that atmosphere of, you know, it's not just and this is what I love about cookbooks, right? They often give you not just the recipes, but little ideas and tips of how to create the whole entire atmosphere when you have friends come over, or when you invite someone over and you do like a dinner party or an afternoon, or I used to do a lot of games nights, and you know, you prepare the food and you can do themes. Like, it's what, you know what I'm talking about? Like, you create 100%. The entire atmosphere surrounding this meal and this food. And I think the food is the base of that, because we connect with each other so often over food. If you think about even any kind of like parties, get-togethers, stuff, like it's rare that you don't have at least, you know, you'll have your drinks and stuff, but it's rare that you get together for any length of time and talk to people without there being a food element, without there being a sharing a meal, sharing, even if it's just like, you know, grazing plates. Like that's something that's been big and I've done a lot of over the years, like food. It's such a connector.
Of course, because it's the common thread to the human experience, really, you know, everyone. That's one of the things I enjoy. I don't host big part like events or anything. I think eventually I would want to, like, but also it would just like give me anxiety that I'm like gonna start, like, what if I stuff up the whole meal then no one has anything to eat? But like I love, you know, like a lot of one-on-one kind of interactions with friends. Love going out for a meal, or you know, inviting them over for dinner. Like, it's because it's just, I think food also allows for good conversation, because you know people are comfortable and
relaxed.
There's
a psychology thing of like when people have something to do with their hands, which is often eating or drinking, it leaves them more comfortable
and
more
vulnerable,
like more vulnerable, open to be vulnerable. But can I just say on that, scared of stuffing it up, and Isobel, you can back me up on this. It doesn't matter if you do. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
you stuff it up, you can either fix it or you just order pizza.
Yeah, pizza.
Or
That's true. That's true.
100%. No.
All
One
right.
of the most memorable dinner parties I went to,
Yeah.
the host, total foodie, planned a many course meal, and she brought the meat out of the oven and it hadn't cooked yet. And so, okay, everybody, I'm just going to let you know we're totally switching the order of the courses tonight. And we just went with it.
Yeah.
It's just it. Like, you can roll with anything because food is adaptable. It is part of everyday life. So everyone has those moments where it doesn't work out and you just create some great stories.
Oh, I love that. This has been such a great conversation, guys. Before we end, I thought we'd go through some of our Facebook comments that we've gotten over the past couple of weeks. We did ask our Facebook members, what is your favorite cookbook? We did get some comments. Sim?
We did. So Alicia said any Jamie Oliver cookbook. Honestly, that is so fair.
Isn't it great? I love watching Jamie Oliver, his shows. Like, he's so, I feel like he's so relatable. Like, he's like very much the people's cook, you know?
Yeah, he's sort of similar to, I think, Nigella as well. Like, a lot of those sorts of cooks who are just like, there's no pretentiousness. It's just like, we love cooking. We're going to make it as easy and accessible as possible. And I also think, like, he's amazing at, like, giving information. Like, it's not just the recipe. It's this, this thing and where it came from and the history of the plant or the vegetable or I kind of love that. Anyway, so Wendy also said the Ottolenghi flavor.
Isabel, have you read this cookbook, Ottolenghi?
No.
'Cause
I've heard the word, but
this is the one I've heard so much about. Like, everyone I feel like it's kind of like the cult favorite of like a cook. Well, I have never read it. I don't know what the big deal is.
We'll put it on
She
the
says
list.
it's the best cookbook that she owns.
That's
right?
what everyone says. And I'm like, why? I think we need to pick it up.
I know. I tried to look into it. I was like, oh, I think we need to look into this one more.
Yeah.
So that's apparently the best.
Okay, well, I doubt it's going to beat this one. My favorite, Alice. But anyway. Well, we would love to hear your thoughts on what you're enjoying as well. Sim, you can send a voicemail.
You can send a voicemail at 029854 7025, or you can leave a post in the Hope Book Club Facebook group. And, all of that information's in the show notes.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to remember that at all. And we'd also love this podcast to reach more people. And the way you do that is by sharing it with your bookish friends. You can rate, you can review, you subscribe, or just share it with someone who you think would like it. Until then, stay reading. We will catch you next time. Isabel, thank you so much for joining us.
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate that.
Welcome. It's been fun.
And I hope you have the most wonderful time in London. Simone and I will be on our way real soon.
Yep.
To have a dinner
I'll
party.
be practicing my dinner parties.
Start preparing the food recipes and so quote to end on. Well, I wanted to go with the Mary Berry. She's the cookbook author, but also judge on the Great British Bake Off.
Oh, she's
She's
amazing.
an absolute treasure. And she says cooking and baking is both physical and mental therapy. And I love that.
Love that. Catch you next time, guys. Thank you.
See ya.